What's happening YouTube? In today's video we're reviewing the Fuji 56mm f1.2 R lens. And yes, I know it is not the 56 that I have on this camera right now, it's actually just the kit lens. I already sent the 56 back to where I rented it from, and the kit lens is actually roughly about the same size. So just for comparison, it felt right to just be holding a lens roughly the same size. Seems like it makes sense to me. As always with my reviews, they're not super high technical reviews where I compare corner sharpness at different apertures. It's really just a practical review of how I use the lens and the way I've found it to be during like everyday shooting with it. And if you want to see more reviews like this, as well as photography behind the scenes videos where I go out and actually make photography with a GoPro on top of the camera, then hit that subscribe button. I make new videos every single week. So let's start off with the size of this lens. Smaller lenses and cameras are part of the reason that I got into the Fuji system, and I was a little bit worried that the 56 would be too big and chunky and feel more like a full frame type lens. And it was actually not nearly as big or heavy as I expected it to be. Seeing pictures of it makes it look really chunky, and a lot of people have talked about it being a chunky, like heavy lens. And it's always with the caveat for a Fuji X lens. And I guess it probably is, but it's actually like shorter than the kit lens is by probably as much as like that tip of the lens there, so a little bit shorter there. And it is wider, like it's chunkier this way. In practical use, it doesn't feel any bigger on the camera really, and its proportions didn't make it feel out of balance on the camera in my opinion. I've heard people say that it feels more front heavy, and I didn't really experience that. Like sure, it feels bigger than having like a 23 f2 or a 35 f2 on there, but it just doesn't feel much different to the kit lens to me. Like it feels fine. I think it feels balanced. I don't have any problems with it at all. And in terms of weight, the same sort of feeling. It's 405 grams, which is 0.9 pounds, and the kit lens is like about 100 grams less than that, or like 0.68 pounds. So less than a quarter pound lighter than the 56, but in practical terms, I didn't really notice it when carrying it around. If I held both lenses side by side, I could tell that the 56 was a little heavier, but I don't feel it when I'm carrying it around all day. The build quality. It feels like a solid, well-built piece of Fuji glass as you would expect it to be. The focus ring and the aperture ring feel really nice. However, they do move a little bit easier than I would like them to. I kept bumping the aperture ring a little bit, and it kept moving me into different apertures when I didn't even realize it. And also, if I pre-focused somewhere and just rested my hand on the lens, I would very easily start to nudge it back or forward. So that was kind of annoying, and I guess the only way to fix that is to cancel the manual override. But sometimes it's nice to have manual override available, so you have to just get used to holding the lens in a slightly different way and move your finger back out of the way of the focus ring. So the sharpness. I have absolutely no issues with the sharpness on this 56mm lens. Even when wide open at f1.2, the area that's in focus is very sharp, which is not always the case for really wide aperture lenses. And even wide open at close range, I have no issues with the sharpness, which can sometimes be an issue on some lenses. Its low light capabilities, obviously having a 1.2 aperture means that this lens is really good in low light situations, stopping you from having to bump up your ISO as much. So the bokeh, or the out of focus areas of this lens, are really nice. They have that nice like creamy, soft, smooth, buttery, whatever other adjectives you have for good bokeh. It looks great. And what's really nice about it is that it can make you feel like a slightly better photographer, because when you can isolate a subject and blur everything else out, you don't need to worry as much about your composition. So it kind of strokes your ego a little bit in that sense. But yeah, it looks great. One thing I will say is that compared to my Canon 85mm on a full frame, I preferred the bokeh of that lens, I think. And that might just be because it's full frame and it's 85mm instead of a 56. It just seemed a little bit smoother and more blurred out in the background, but not so much that it really bothers me, and I would still be very happy with the bokeh from the 56. And to be fair, I only really tested it in my kitchen, taking a picture of a bottle of whiskey, so that's the only background that I had to compare it to. But whatever, it's great. It's great. It has great bokeh. There are no issues there. Don't feel like you have to get full frame to get a nicer blurred out background. This is, well, not this one, because this is the kit lens. The 56 is great. All right, the focusing. Focusing this lens, yes, it's a little bit slow. That's pretty well documented. It's not so slow that it like becomes a massive hindrance. I think if you have a moving subject or if you're in a really dark situation, it can become a bit more of a problem, but as long as you have a point of contrast, you should be fine. It just takes slightly longer than some of the other lenses. But in practical terms, there's a bunch of wedding photographers that use the 56, and most of the time weddings take place in some low light environments and there are a lot of moving subjects, and if a wedding photographer can use it in a low light situation with moving subjects, then it's probably not a deal breaker. The focusing distance on this lens is 0.7 meters or like 27.5 inches, which isn't that close. However, coming from an 85mm that doesn't focus as close as that, it feels better to me. So I have no complaints about that, although some people hate that it doesn't focus closer than that. So I guess it's just down to what you already know from previous lens experience. With that being said, it's a rare occasion that I'm trying to shoot that close with this type of lens anyways. So 90% of the time, I'll never even notice. Alright, so the cost or the value of this lens. At $900, this lens is expensive enough for it not to be worth it for a hobbyist photographer, but cheap enough that it offers really good value for a working photographer. $900 for 56mm or 85mm equivalent lens with a 1.2 aperture is really good value for any working professional. If you can afford that as a hobbyist, there's absolutely no harm in investing in great glass. I just personally feel like it's a lot of money to spend if you're not moving towards getting paid for your photography. So versatility. While its relative size and weight make the 56 a lens that's easy enough to throw in your bag and carry around with you, which makes it kind of more versatile, it's not a particularly versatile lens in my opinion. I think it was probably designed with portrait photographers in mind, and it's shown to be fantastic at doing exactly that. It's probably not a great everyday carry lens unless you exclusively shoot tight frames all of the time, in which case it's probably great. I personally would probably only use it for more work things and the occasional street photography outing where I want a tighter frame. I think if I was traveling, I would want something that zooms, as well as maybe my 35 f2, which I find to be pretty versatile. The 56 probably wouldn't come on trips with me. I personally don't think I would find it useful for anything outside of portraits, weddings, and occasionally street. If I'm traveling, I'm going to be taking the kit lens with me. Most of the time I'll be using the 35 f2, and I also always take the 55 to 200 zoom lens, because I feel like that's like a good combination of lenses to have for travel. And I find them versatile and I can use them in like a large range of situations. Whereas with the 56, I just don't see me pulling it out of my bag for anything other than the specific times when I know I'm going to want it. Which is another reason why I think it's better to buy it if you're going to be making money from it if you're a professional. So who is this lens for? If you're a working portrait photographer, a working wedding photographer, or investing in gear to get started in either of those professions, then this is a fantastic lens that will serve you for a long time to come and will probably pay for itself over and over again. If you're a hobbyist and you don't plan on making money from photography anytime soon, it's probably overkill. You could probably save your cash, buy the 50mm f2, which has weather sealing, go on a trip with it, don't worry about getting it a little bit damp, and kind of enjoy photography a little bit more rather than spending all your money on a more expensive lens. I haven't tested the 50 f2, but from what I've heard about it, it's a pretty great lens, so it's probably a really good alternative to the 56. That being said, if money's no object and you've got plenty of money left over, then by all means go for the 56. it's a great lens. Ultimately, one of the reasons I wanted to test this lens is that I want to eventually move away from the big full-frame DSLRs to the smaller crop sensor Fuji system, and the 56 1.2 is probably going to be one of my main workhorse lenses, so it was good to get a feel for how I would like it. And as you may be able to tell, I do like it, and it is a great lens. So if you like these less technical review videos, and if you like photography behind the scenes videos, then remember to hit that subscribe button. I make new videos every week. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, drop me a comment down below, let me know what you thought, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.